What is up, guys? This is John, aka Pokemon, and I am joined with...
It's Chris. I'm that guy. I do the
He's
thing.
that guy that did the power rankings for the GBA last season. If you guys don't know what that was, we'll explain it in a moment, but it was definitely my favorite part of the season, at least when I wasn't involved. And even when, after my game every week, I'd really look forward. Even if I had lost, I remember when I was at 1 and 2, I still looked forward to it. I was at the bottom, but it's exciting, It's a way to really look at the standings itself and then go a little further and say why we think in the power rankings. So actually, Chris, you can explain the power rankings because this is the first of a weekly series.
Yeah, so basically in the power rankings, what we're going to do is, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to rank the teams 1 through 8 in this case because the D-League has 8 teams. We have 4 different categories. Categories are really just kind of a superficial flavor thing, but top 2 teams are Master Ball. The 3rd and 4th team are Great Ball. 5th and 6th team are Super Ball.
Ultra Great Pokeball.
Yeah, Ultra Great. Yeah, Pokeball. Sorry. Messed that up. My guy that did the docs, he did some of them in Spanish names, so now I'm all confused about what Pokeballs are called. Like, I haven't been playing these games for 20-something years.
The Super Ball.
Yeah. So, we're just going to go down the list. We're going to give our opinions, and it is pretty much entirely opinion-based. So, if you disagree, feel free to disagree, and it's actually good. It's fun. Discuss it in the comments back and forth with other people. It's a good conversation thing, like, well, I think they're good because of this. I think you're overlooking this. I think these guys have a better matchup week to week. And, these are the kind of things that we do to figure out the rankings. It's not purely based off stats. There are some calls that we make where it's like, well, even though this team is doing worse, I still think they're a better team or are going to perform better because of X and Y. And we're just going to explain all that to you kind of while we're doing stuff.
Exactly, that's a great way to go over the power rankings. And also, as you said, leave your lists down below. And there's only been 2 games. These mean absolutely nothing. The last place team could be the first place team at the end of the season, but it's a good way to keep track of who's doing what and how people are going, and it's nice to rank the teams. And one of the biggest things as we get closer to the playoffs, the rankings is more who do we think is going to win it all. Right now, the number 1 on the list would probably be our pick to win it all, but means absolutely nothing. Everyone's only played 2 games. No one's played everybody or even played everyone in their conference. So again, take everything we say with a grain of salt, and it's just our opinions. We're just
it's really first impressions this week. It's what we think based off what they've shown from us at the very beginning. And a lot of teams have slow starts. A lot of teams start strong and fizzle out. These are the kind of things that just happen in every kind of competitive atmosphere. So,
but the number 1 team made it really easy for us because our number 1 team plus 10 differential in 2 games. The San Francisco Arcaniners. George, number 1. How do you feel about this start, Chris?
You've known George for a long time, and you've on multiple occasions talked him up to various people, myself included. I watched him do his tournament battles and everything. I thought he did well. I watched him do the single elimination, and while he didn't make it to the top, he still did very well. He did good enough to get 3rd overall pick in the draft, which is really strong based off differential and things like that. And he's consistently showing it here. When we were looking at the draft and going through his team, he definitely wasn't the guy who necessarily picked all of these super scary things. He got enough super scary things because he's got stuff like Aegislash and Latios.
Mm-hmm.
But, he seemed to have a very particular methodical stance on how he was drafting stuff. And so far, it seems to be working out with a little bit of help in the hacks department in the first match against Sam. He got a good 5-0, but he also made great plays. And then this week against Frank, again, another 5-0, and virtually no real hacks that changed the game.
No.
It was pretty much just he outplayed him.
And yeah, that's one thing in both battles. The hacks definitely helped him with Sam. I don't know if he'd gotten a 5-0 without it, but he definitely outplayed both opponents. Both opponents agreed, and it's been kind of crazy. I remember looking at his team. The number 1 thing I think all of us said is that's not the team I would pick, but what he's been doing every week is he's taken something and he's like, this is going to be my special wall. Like, I think it was first week it was Latios, second week it was Mega Gardevoir, and I don't know if these opponents saw that coming. I wouldn't, but those were, it's just he's taking his team and he's really putting them into the role he wants them every single week, and I think that's actually what separates the number 2, like 1 and 2 people in this from everyone else. They're really getting some different sets. They're changing their things around. They're not going to stay the same. You know, you're not going to see the same team week after week. They're really changing it up, and I mean, so far he's been doing good. If he keeps it up, I don't know, but right now 2-0 plus 10, you literally can't do much better.
I really think so far he's kind of exemplified that thing you were talking about he'll pick something and make it something, but with his draft, it seems like now he's showing that he picked things that are really versatile based off stat. Like, he doesn't have things that have stat distributions where they're limited. Like, he can run, you know, offensive Arcanine, he can run physically defensive Arcanine, he can run specially defensive Arcanine, he can do the same thing with Gardevoir. Like, he's got a lot of options, and he's really showing them off, and it's paying off for him.
Yeah, and just to finish this off with one last thing to kind of build off of that is, you know, when you see some of the things picked, when you see maybe not like Aegislash, but something like, I guess, Breloom, I think that's the best example, just thinking of the things on his team we haven't mentioned. A lot of people would say, okay, he's going to be Sash, Spore, Mach Punch, this and that. And I don't know if we've seen Breloom from him yet, this year yet or anything like that, but
it's been in both matches.
Has it? Has it done much? No, it's not even worth it.
It's not running in the MVP race, but
no. It's there. I think in both battles, almost everything got a kill. He's been
he's been one of the most evenly distributed people in both battles. Almost everything's gotten a kill,
and that's the thing. Like, when I'm going with Breloom, you'd expect that to Spore something, try and set up, or this or that. But I feel like we're going to see a lot of different sets. He's going to tack things on to deal with this and that, and it's going to go for one kill and then get out of there. And that's with everything on his team. Everything's one kill and get out. There's no sweeping. But as we move on to the second place, that's not how the real Marill have been playing. It's not just one and done. It is Greninja to the top with Miguel. My God.
And in fairness to him, because we don't want to make it just seem like, oh, he drafted Greninja, he's going to do well, because Greninja is borderline broken. It's not quite as broken in this format as some other things, but it's damn close. He's also built a team around it, and he makes the plays every game. Like, Miguel is just doing a fantastic job of transferring the basics of like competitive battling as far as assessing win condition and applying it here with the matchups, which is something he didn't necessarily do great in the single elimination. And that early 6-0 to get knocked out of the first round of that really kind of lit a fire underneath him seemingly. And now he is assessing every possible threat, and he's running, you know, as many contingencies as his team allows him to, and he's approaching things very systematically. This week we saw a just textbook takedown of Mamoswine, which Mamoswine could have destroyed his entire team.
Yeah, that was, I think it was turn 3, turn 4. That's how you get it done. And I was saying, you know, Greninja, that's not like, hey, he's gonna win because of Greninja. He's like, I need to get rid of this Greninja just sweeps, and that's how you do it. If you have something that's gonna destroy the other person's team, that's your win condition. Save that to the time where you can just make it destroy the team. I know he went against Roger, and he brought Scarf Greninja. A lot of people don't see that coming because you're like, it's really fast. Why would you do that? Well, Greninja's +7 differential says that's why you do that.
Well, and Roger also has Deoxys speed, so that's the only thing anyone would have to even remotely touch it. So, but you know, again, that's the thing where he assessed the threat and he made the right call. That's really what he's been doing. He's not just figured out what offensively he needs to do to take people down. He's really doing a great job of looking at, okay, what's going to tear a hole through my team and how can I stop it? And he's playing it well. He's playing a pretty balanced game as far as differential and saving things too, where he isn't needlessly sacking things. He's almost always trading one thing for a major threat and then leaving room to sweep and build, while not scary George differential, a good differential nonetheless.
Oh yeah, very, very good differential. He's averaging +3 every battle. That's a very solid win. I mean, it's nothing. You don't look at that, you're like, oh my god, but it's very good. He's beating opponents by a good margin. It's not like he's destroying people, but I mean, he's doing damn well. He's doing exactly what he needs to do, and then getting a few extra kills just to, you know, add injury to, or insult to injury, whatever you want to say with that. One thing I really liked was the Alomomola with the HP Electric, and not because of why everyone else saw it, because everyone's like, the HP, this and that. What he did is he said, this thing is going to sweep me, that being Gyarados, And if I bring Alomomola and I put HB Electric on it, beyond all the other good things Alomomola do, I can tempt it to come in on the Alomomola, and I can get rid of it. And if I can get rid of this threat, I'm going to be able to deal with this team because it's the worst thing to me. So if I can try and get it in, if I can bait it in, that's what I was trying to say. If I can bait it in, get rid of it, then I basically have the match, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a very good thing of just when everyone was criticizing Alomomola, the most common criticism was that it's set up fodder. And, you know, that's the one thing he could do that specific week to ensure that it wasn't set up fodder. And, you know, in this format, if you can figure out what a single Pokemon's greatest weakness on your own team is and cover that with a move, that's fantastic. God, yeah. That does so much for you. But that being said, let's go ahead and move on to number 3.
Which is the Cleveland Slowbros Demo Big Man. Oh my god.
Go Bros.
Jeez, I'm so excited because Demo, a great guy, and he was the biggest question mark coming into this because he's a great battler, but we all know he has
amazing content.
Whoa, that's
flat out, no lies. If anybody had asked me to put money down on who would have been one of the last place teams, I would have said him, just based off experience and the appearance of his draft team.
I'm completely with you. I really thought that if anyone was going to be a little bit below everyone else when it came to, you know, playing wise, it was going to be him. But he's completely proved us wrong, and I love it. It's just great.
Absolutely. There's nothing I want more than to see people prove me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it comes to negative opinions. 2-0 against, you know, some good teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, he is third, and even though he's tied with Miguel at that +6 differential, we did kind of put him here because I feel like he's beat less threatening teams at this point. He's still beating good teams because there aren't any bad teams in this league, but so far he just hasn't really gone up against like a super offensive team to show that, you know, he can overcome that hurdle. Yeah, I mean,
he's played against 2 teams that are combined to be 0-4 and -13, and I think both of those teams are going to turn it around. And I won't want to say the second half of the season. It's only been 2 games, so turn around for the rest of the season. I think they're going to get some wins.
Oh, yeah.
I think either of them could even make the playoffs. But we can't theory him on too much. He's beaten 2 0-2 teams. Other people have either better differential or beaten potentially better battlers. And I think this next week is really going to make or break. Well, not make or break, but it's going to really decide if he is truly a favorite of ours to win it all, or at least one of our favorites, or if he's just going to be a really good team who'll probably make the playoffs. Because if he wins next week, I think he has a chance to overtake Miguel, whether or not he wins. I think that's just...
And if he wins, he will have beaten all 3 members of his conference, which is something.
He's number
conference
one.
Conference wins are big for morale, and it's also you more directly controlling your fate because you are directly pushing your competition down.
Very true.
It's great if you win an out-of-conference match, but then you still kind of have to hope that the other teams in your conference are going to lose their out-of-conference match too to, you know, give you that lead in stats. Otherwise, it might as well be a tie or a wash.
Very true. It's almost easy to look at this division. I mean, there's 1-1 -1, 0-2 -4, 0-2 -9, and you can say, he's only at the top because it's an easy division. Or you can say, hey, he beat 2 of those 0-2 teams. He is why that division is looking so bad, and that is so impressive in its own right. Everything about this I love. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I mean, he's done work with a team that, you know, everyone really was a little bit down on.
Yeah, myself included.
Not because it was a super bad team. It was just, you know, people were picking huge threats in the first round, and he went for a niche, like not a niche, but he went for a pure versatility pick in Mew. And while Mew was fantastic, we've never in the GBA format really seen it putting up huge numbers. And even though it hasn't put up huge numbers for him yet, it has been fairly instrumental in getting him his wins both weeks. Like, it totally shut down a large portion of Sam's team. Sam had very little to deal with it. And right now, we're really seeing, I think, the difference that just good instincts make. Like, you can learn the game, you can learn to team build, but sometimes it's just about making the right gut call. You know, like, am I going to predict here or am I going to over predict? And it just seems like Demo has really good instincts for that.
He really does. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that probably, would, I guess we could say, would know the game a little more, been playing a little longer, but the instincts, he really does. He has some really good predictions. That he's one of those guys, like, because you look at him, you're like, oh, okay, maybe he won't be as good. He does a play, you're like, oh, that's just a silly play. And I think the first week some people thought that, but when I listened to his narration, his thought process, it was spot on. He was just making incredible predictions, and he carried it on to the second week. And I expect it to continue on for the rest of the season. I'm very excited to see this one. But I think it's time to move on to the last person in the top 4.
Yeah, the first defeated team, the illustrious Baby Roger Rabbit Showdown of the Denver Bronzongs, lost first week to Miguel. It was a rough loss. He was doing pretty good at the beginning, waffled a little bit, and the match just kind of slipped away from him. Miguel brought the right things, and unfortunately Roger didn't have answers for some of them. But came back this week, won a strong match against John Origins. John played a great game against Roger, but Roger just had exactly what he needed to pull out a, fairly decent win. Not the massive win he needed to push into the positive differential, but, still a great win and enough to tie him up for the other 1-1 spot.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The first time he didn't have what he needed, the second time he had what he needed. And that's why he's at number 4, because he is tied with the number 5 team, same win-loss, same differential. But he went forward, and I only expect to see that in the following weeks. The first week, he played a good game. In my opinion, he played pretty damn well. He had I guess you could say there was a few misplays, a few things he could have done better, but I think he just didn't bring the right team to beat Miguel. He didn't have much of a chance, but he still played a good game for what he had. Second week, buckled down, brought the team he needed to, and, the results show that he needed a lot better against a really good team. Maybe, again, another 0-2 team. It's still, we need to see some things. He's only beaten an 0-2 team. He lost to a 2-0 team. But I think that Roger has a really good chance in this league this year. The bad thing is he's in the win division with 2-0 teams, and he's lost to one. He plays another this week. But it's a big
the
game.
The one he plays this week is George.
Yep.
Which,
oh, God.
If he can pull out a decisive win here, though, in the Baby Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
The title of Preschooler Jones, he could shoot up, and
in the power rankings for sure. It might take a few games for him to get up the standings, but if he can unseat the number 1 seed, he goes from loss to close win to beating the best team right now in the league. He is a legitimate threat, and I almost expect to see that. I like to see this transition up, and I think the first week, maybe not completely a fluke. I feel like he just didn't know how much time he needed to put in the first week, which makes sense. I think a lot of people had trouble trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it was definitely a thing where, you got to get your sea legs for the format. I am still waiting, though, for a couple of people to show those kind of breakout wins, because I think that's the difference here.
Yeah.
In the top 3 and the rest of them. Right now, Roger has shown good, solid, fundamental gameplay, but he hasn't had that wow, he fucked that dude up match.
Yep. Nope, not at all. But maybe we'll see it next week. Maybe we'll see it in the week after. I don't know. But moving on to the next team, which has the same exact record, same differential, the mighty Ducklets. Andy, Adam, Arthur, all of them. All of these.
Yeah, the whole shebang.
Now,
my personal favorite team based off name alone.
Name, icon that you made.
yeah, because I created them.
All those things.
Allowed it.
He's kind of
Adam.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's the other dark horse here. He's the other guy that came in, but he came in huge.
My God, yeah.
Came in 3-0 in the tournament, then won the entire single elimination bracket, got first overall draft and first mega draft through random lottery. So it seemed like the world was his oyster.
Yep.
Came in first week, solid match, and you were like, well, Frank is no slouch at the Pokemon game, so Adam's a real threat here. And then Miguel said, hey, I got 6-0'd. I'm not playing around anymore.
Yep.
I'm going to show you why you're a dark horse. Sit down over there.
That's exactly what happened. If you look at Miguel's commentary, he's like, this is the number 1 seed. I'm taking him down. And that's the killer. I think that's the attitude that separates the number 2, like 1 and 2, and everyone else, as you were saying, the big wins, the attitude. And I think Adam, he still has it. I mean, he went undefeated through everything up until week 2, and he lost against one of the best teams, possibly the best team in the league. And it's nothing to really be ashamed about. -1 is not the differential you want to be at, though, with all of those things coming in. I mean, won all his games. He had potentially the best draft, or at least he had the potential to have the best draft. I don't know if we can really.
I don't know.
It's hard to judge them.
Having talked to a lot of the other coaches, I feel like Adam is one of probably only 2 or 3 of the 8 who didn't have anything sniped from them.
Yeah.
I feel like Adam got the team he wanted.
I definitely do, and I think he's definitely going to bring it back. I think he's going to be in the top half. It's kind of, it's kind of sad to see him, so far down just because of one loss, but that's how it goes. I think
it was a fairly substantial loss.
It really was.
Not just in differential, but just in basic tactics and stuff like that.
And it really separates who's at the top and who's at the bottom. You got to beat the best.
It was a thing we were talking about where he played Miguel, and Miguel said, okay, Mammoth Swine, screws over my team. I need to take it out. And Adam should have been able to realize Mammoth Swine screws over his team. I need to preserve that until Gothitelle is out of the picture, because Gothitelle is basically a guaranteed kill on something.
Yep, and I guess next time, I hope we can see him get the push. But at the same time, there's only 8 teams, there's only 4 playoff spots, so him and Raj have the same record, and it's let's see who's gonna make the next one. But the next 3 people all have the same exact record. They're all in the same bad boat, but they all do have different differentials, which is actually, it's kind of funny. Beyond the first place team, everyone had the same differential coming up to this point. This group of people who I think can play a lot better, and we will see them, starting with John of the Crystal Palace.
John had, another one of those teams where everybody kind of looked at it and we're like, I don't really know what you're doing here. But we were all pretty confident he was going to do something with it, and for the most part he has.
Yeah.
He's lost, but a -4 off of 2 losses is a very good differential. That's an average of only 2 a thing, and he actually has 2 Pokemon in the top 10 for kills. Like, he's focusing his units very well. It's just he doesn't seem to have quite the pieces there, or he's not bringing the necessary pieces to, push it over the edge and get the kills versus, only killing 4 out of the 6 things on the other team.
Yeah, that's very true. And I remember in the first game, he had a lot of over predictions, and I don't like to take away from people for over predictions. I mean, obviously, he made a bad prediction, but he was trying to get the big move. He was trying to get the big play and get the big kill. It didn't go his way. I remember the beginning, there was a little bit of hacks that threw him off the first battle. In the second one, I think he played a really good game. I think Roger just played a better game. I think you have to take your hat off for both of those teams. That was just a great battle. I really enjoyed watching it myself, and I think that we're going to see a win from him. If not this week, next week, very soon. I think he's going to turn it around, and out of all 3 of the 0-2 teams, I think he has the best chance to actually make the playoff push. He has I don't know if he has the team, but he definitely has the skill. He has the attitude, and he drafted that team for a reason. He wanted all of those Pokemon for a specific reason, and I'm excited to see what they do. I mean, we saw Kofag do more than anyone thought it would do, so maybe that's just the beginning. But now it is time to go on to the bottom 2 teams, which some people might actually be surprised in the order of these 2 teams. There was 2 cases where me and Chris had to talk about it, and the first one obviously being Adam and Baby Roach, because they were so similar. And this one is Sam and Frank, and we're actually going to put Sam with the Newcastle United at number 7. He's 0-2. He's got a -9 differential, which is horrendous. But I really think...
Yeah, and the notable part about that is it's worse than Frank's differential. So technically, Sam is the last place team in the league. However, we are putting him up a little bit above Frank.
Yes, I really think that he's going to turn this around. And, Chris said the sea legs, and it's a big part of it, Everyone's busy, everyone's so used to playing Orso U, all this hype, and getting in it, playing Wi-Fi, and trying to learn the GBA format in such a small amount of time. It's kind of hard, and some people picked it up a lot quicker. Some people are a little behind. And I think that's just where Sam is. I think he just needs to, well, I don't know what, and really going with that. He's played 2 games. He's had some bad losses. I think he's going to turn it around. I think he knows what he needs to do now, and it's just going to get better and better. Where when we saw Frank, the first battle wasn't that bad. And there was a few plays where he should have done something and he didn't. The second battle, he kind of just got demolished. I think actually the first battle what was it? A 2-0? I think he just got 2-0. The second battle, he got 5-0'd.
Yep.
He went backwards, and Sam he went forwards. He definitely went forwards.
Sam took baby steps,
very small steps, but still steps, and that's what you want to see, When you make some progress, when you start getting some kills, it gives you some more confidence. The more confidence you get, it's going to translate into the next battle. When you go from, if you're 0-2 and you go from the 2-0 loss to the 5-0 loss, you're in the division where everyone already has a win. You need to get that first win. It's going to get harder and harder. Well, Sam, he went, nothing to, or at least he got a crit kill, and now he's gotten 2 kills with something, and maybe the next week he gets a few more kills. Next week he gets a win, and that's when, it's just the snowball goes down the hill. Comes a giant boulder, and maybe Sam wins it all. Maybe 0-2 -9 guy wins it all. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam's in there, and I think he's making the right plays for the most part. He maybe just needs to consider his matchups a little bit better, because we saw when he came into the match against the Cleveland Slowbros this week, he didn't have an answer for Mew, and you have to have something for that. I mean,
yeah,
when your best answer is to toxic it and hope you can stay in and get kind of a double down with your own Deoxys defense, you're gonna need something.
Yeah,
you need some kind of obscure coverage move or something.
That's definitely a good point, because I remember his narration. He was very surprised he brought Florges, and he's like, well, shit, and I brought 3 things to toxic, and now he has aromatherapy, and that really hurt him. He put a lot onto that, and it didn't work out, because Demo brought the right thing that he needed to. Sam, his strategy was really hindered by the fact that he had aromatherapy Florges, and I think that's a mistake that he's not going to make again. I think it's only get better from there. And has he brought Sylveon yet?
He brought the first week, I believe, but didn't bring it the second week. Mixed opinions on that. On the one hand, obviously, Demo does have Mega Scizor, so you're kind of just going to be playing around that the entire time if you bring Sylveon. However, Sylveon does put in a lot of work against a lot of other things on Demo's team, so it was a trade-off call. He made the call not to bring Sylveon. The battle didn't work out for him. It's intense theory mining to say whether or not that would have been the thing to change the tide of battle. Occasionally there are things where you can look at a team and go, oh, he should have brought that.
Yeah.
That was a silly thing not to bring. That's an instant win condition. I don't know that Sylveon was that for him this week. I don't know that anything in particular, I don't know that he had anything in particular that he left on his bench that would have changed his battles. I just think maybe he's going to need to tweak the sets a little bit more. And the first match against George, he did have a fair bit of unfortunate hacks that went against him. Some of it could have been worked around and wasn't, but
Yeah.
These are things where you kind of have to give people a little bit of slack. Obviously, there's growing pains getting used to the format because it is somewhat different as well. It's like Sam understands some of the concepts, but maybe isn't integrating them as well as he could.
Oh yeah, and the Sylveon comment it was more of he drafted the ridiculous core of Sylveon, Kyurem Black, and Skarmory. His second battle, he allowed Thundurus. Well, Thundurus is now number 2 in the MVP race with 6 kills. I think 4 of them came against him, or like,
yep,
right. So that might have been able to get stopped with Sylveon, and he tried to toxic stall someone's team without that crazy core. So I'm wondering if maybe, just maybe, when he brings that core of 3, things will change. And that is the top 3 things he got together, and the whole thing was those work ridiculous together. So maybe they have to be all on the same field for them to do well. I don't know.
That's a really good point, actually. And one of the things that I kind of thought that Deoxys defense pick was a little bit greedy during the draft. He's brought that both weeks, and it really hasn't done a lot for him. And I'm wondering if maybe he's just a little starstruck by Deoxys D and kind of trying to make it work when he had better options with his original plan, and now he's maybe trying to justify that impulse pick.
I could definitely see that. I remember I had the opposite problem when I was playing with Deoxys D. In the beginning, I was like, why is this on the team? It seemed the same thing. It seemed like a greedy pick. This isn't what I needed. But some weeks you could just come up with such a crazy set that it worked, and it seems that he's, as you said, starstruck, and he's using kind of the standard Deoxys D set, where I think in this format you want to, really bring those pretty out there moves and specific coverage moves to deal with certain things. Maybe Rock Slide could have been good for the Thunder. Something just, that no one really would have saw it coming. Maybe Ice Beam. I don't really know. I don't know what could be better for him, but it's just things to think about what could do better, because I think he will do better. It's just, what is he going to do? We're not going to be able to do it. He's going to have to do it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that we're not going to see, every team's going to have a victory or two by the end of this. I think it would be nearly impossible to have a team go without a win, or at least a couple of wins throughout the season. And, Sam's going to get his wins. He's going to find his ground.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he'll do all right. It's just a matter of how soon is he going to be able to do that.
And I think that really leads us into the last place team for the power rankings, not in the actual standings. Frank of the FC Volcarona, who is sadly in a scary, scary division, going against a 2-0 team next week. It's not looking too good for him, but I think he can turn it around. I really think he can. I mean, the first week, he could have won. I think there's a few plays that he should have done, and Adam was able to capitalize it. Second week, absolutely nothing went right for him. I think one of the biggest things that kind of, I would separate like him and someone like George, was the ice punch on the Toxic Rook. It's not the biggest thing. He didn't put it on there, but it was a huge win condition.
This is one of those things we were talking about where, Sylveon might not have been a win condition.
Yes. Oh, very much.
Ice punch on Toxic Rook was almost definitely a must-have for this team.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, he had other ice options. He could have run Hidden Power Ice on Manectric, or brought Rotom Wash and done that, or on Ice Beam and Polion and brought that. Even Icy Wind Keldeo, even though it's not going to do a ton of damage, but it just, as soon as you realize, you look at the team, you go, oh, Toxic Rook can run through the team if I run the right set.
Yeah, it's just,
and I really think that's where I think Frank at this point, unfortunately, is just the team that's struggling at the planning phase consistently.
Yeah, that is definitely what's going on, and that's not to say that he can't turn that around. He's a great battler. He makes some great teams, and maybe a time restraint, not having enough time, is really holding him back. But sadly, you don't get points for saying I'm busy. I mean, you got to be able to do it, and I hope that he can find the time. I hope he can turn this around, and maybe,
yeah, I really do too.
Maybe that just the ice punch, that he's just going to be able to look back and say, wow, if I had just done this, maybe I could have beat the #1 team. Let's put this much work into this week, and let's knock off Miguel. Let's knock off this other 2-0 team, Maybe this is what he needed, and it's just one of those things. I remember the first turn, George was, his narration, I look at Frank's narrations, both of them were like, oh my god. And Frank's like, I should have had Ice Punch. George was like, thank god he didn't have Ice Punch. And it's like, well, that's where it ends. In the end of the battle, it starts at the beginning, it went full circle. Beginning, Toxic Rook could have just taken out a huge wall. At the end, Toxic Rook could have swept, but one move that, really, I don't even know what else he would have, like what other move he brought that would have made more sense.
Yeah, and I mean, in fairness to Frank, like, he's not making bad plays in the match. It's just literally, as soon as he got in there and George brought Gliscor and he didn't have Ice Punch, the match was fairly decided.
And the reason I'm spending so much time on it, some people might think, you're just being too mean, you're being too hard on him. And actually, the contrary, I don't have much else to say bad about Frank. He's playing great. And sadly, only two. I mean, when you look at 2 games, it's a really small sample size. I mean, if we had a lot more games, Frank could be 6-2. Who knows? But right now, the one thing that I can say is Frank is playing decently well, but this is the one flaw that he has. And if he changes it, maybe he's going to be the team that wins it all.
Yeah, if he can really get down the counter teaming aspect and make sure he's bringing the right stuff, which is without a doubt the hardest part of this format.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's easy to make the right plays
comparatively.
If you have the stuff, if you have the stuff to make the right play. If you bring a team that doesn't have a switch into an ice move then it's going to be a lot harder to play against a team with a Mammoth Swine. You know, if you don't bring anything with reliable Dark or Ghost Stab, then guess what? You're going to spend your entire match playing around Mew and not having as much of offensive pressure because of that.
This is very
and
true.
That's just kind of the unfortunate thing. That's the thing everyone has to adapt to the most, and it's the hardest. Even the teams that adapt to it quickly and do well still have their moments where they're like, this thing was useless this week. I didn't need to bring it. I'm just fortunate enough that the other things I brought did enough work to make up for that.
Yep. And I think that about wraps it up. So if you guys did enjoy this, definitely leave a like, subscribe to the channel. But what we would definitely like to hear, because I mean, me and Chris love this stuff. We're going to be talking amongst ourselves throughout the next coming weeks, beyond when we're doing these videos. Tell us what you think. Are we right? Are we wrong? What's your list? All that stuff. We want to hear it. It's fun to interact with you guys, talk with you guys, and see what everyone else's opinions are, because we're just two guys that really enjoy the league, that are putting our 2 cents in, maybe know a little bit more. We're behind the scenes. He did the whole last season, I played in the last season, so I guess we have more expertise, but I definitely want to hear you guys. But Chris, you have anything else to end it off on?
No, that's pretty much it. Check out all the coaches' channels and things like that. We'll link them in the description as well. Not all of them are going to be getting their games up on Sunday just because life circumstances and things like that, but all of their perspectives are still going to be good, and you should make sure you subscribe to them so that you see their updates and check them out.
Well, that about does it. So until next week, guys, goodbye.